books with exquisite haunted houses. Houses that go bump in the night, houses with curses, houses with stories, houses with walls that can literally talk and will send you running for the hills. I wouldn't recommend living in the hills either. We've already covered before that there's a lot of folk horror nonsense that goes on up there. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Sinead. This is my spooky corner of YouTube where I talk about spooky books, spooky films, spooky things that maybe some of us remember from our childhoods, and whatever happens to pass me by in my day that I think might tickle your macabre fancy. If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button so I can keep bringing you more of this. A few people have requested this video and I am happy to oblige, going through some of the best books that I have read with great haunted houses. Now this is no easy feat because, as you can imagine, haunted houses feature a lot in horror. To be honest, it doesn't even have to be horror. You will get a haunted house of some description. It may not exactly be supernatural, but you'll get them in dramas, in crime thrillers, you'll get them in romantic comedies sometimes, a house with secrets. But with that in mind, there's just a multitude of books out there that feature some form of haunted house. There are the classics that sort of started the trope, and I've talked about them in my video about the Gothic fiction. But there's also all sorts of twists and turns on them, and I haven't read every book out there yet. So today I'm bringing you a collection of my favourites that I've read, that I've enjoyed, as well as some honourable mentions of books I haven't gotten round to, but they are giants in this genre. It wasn't easy, I'm not going to lie to you. There was a big list. My lists are based on my preferences, and there's only so many hours in YouTube, allegedly. Haunted houses clearly aren't going anywhere in literature, so that just means I can bring you more roundups of more books in the future. But before we get into my list of books, let's look at the haunted house in horror and what it represents. This is the tiny bit of analysis, of literary discussion, of looking back at the history of houses and going, oh, it's spooky. I like to do these little excerpts because it's nice to have some context if you are interested in it. There's always exceptions to the rule, and there may be things that you want to talk about in the comments. What is it about the haunted house that works so well in horror? Well, it's not just merely that here is a house with ghosts in it. I mean, that works. Yeah, if you stumble into an old shack and there is a ghost just there in your face, you're going to be terrified. That is good content. The books that I've chosen for this video, I think, do have a nice mixture of different kinds of haunted houses and what they represent, and different ways that people encounter them and confront them. First off, the idea of a haunted house is frightening if you consider that the house is your home. This is your home. This is a place where you're supposed to feel safe, where you raise a family, where you go at the end of the day. You can be yourself. You can shut the doors and shut out the outside world, everything that you are worried about or insecure about or frightened about. Your home would probably be where your family is, or where your loved ones are, whether that's your parents, whether that's your partner, whether that's your children, whether that's your pets. And they should feel safe there, and you have a duty of protection over them, or at least you should feel assured that they will not be harmed. When there is an entity, when then there is another force of something supernatural in your home, it is threatening your vulnerability, it is threatening your safety, it is threatening the things closest and dearest to you. So that idea alone is terrifying. And when I'm saying you at any point in the video, I'm not saying you out there, I'm saying you as in one, as in everyone, as in the protagonist of the story. I just tend to say that just for clarity. When you've got a domestic setting in a book, you as the reader are peeking through the keyhole as well. You are looking inside someone's private life in a way that you would never be able to do in your day-to-day life. You are seeing people in their natural environment, as it were, but at their most vulnerable, possibly. There is a flip side to the home as well. The home isn't always a happy place. The home should be where we are traditionally supposed to be safe, supposed to be loved in this ideal world of perfect families. But sometimes the home is a place of horror. Sometimes it is a place of great distress. It can, all manner of terrible things can happen behind those closed doors. And again, it is a place of vulnerability and risk. And there you have some of the haunted house stories that manifest that, the sadness in a house, the horror that people may be feeling that is very real, that is very grounded, that can manifest as something other, an entity, a ghost, a spirit, a poltergeist, something that is representing the disruption and the effrontery of what's happening in that home. You've also got instances where the haunted house is brand new. You have people wanting to make this new property coming from somewhere else, that's going to be their home. People putting all their hopes and dreams into this new house. So the family are all packed up, or the couple or the individual in the book, and they turn up on the doorstep of this incredible house. What a bargain it was. I can't believe it was such a steal. Why is there blood all over the steps? That's odd. The blood usually gets off at the first floor. Is it just me, or are those paintings staring at us? Don't go into the attic. Sounds perfectly reasonable. So you have the old tropes of people looking for a new home and trying to force themselves upon a property that maybe is not ready for them, that does not want them. Whether you like the idea that a house is sentient, that the house itself absorbs the past traumas that it has witnessed, that it has had to host, or whether or not there's spirits lurking in there that have been trapped in the house because of mayhem or calamities from the past, you've got new people forcing their way into a home, innocently on their part, and the house rejects them. The terror of walking into a new space and feeling like you are not wanted. The idea of rejection is terrifying to many people. And also the idea of being picked up and hurled down the stairs, as often happens in those kind of haunted house books. Then you have people returning to a property after a long absence. The old, oh, I'm going back to this place, visiting it after many years apart. Maybe they have had to leave that location because of past traumas, past misery, past arguments. Another way that a lot of very good haunted house books and some more cliched ones will start is with the individual who gets the letter, the phone call, the email, the telegram, the crow, informing them that the last relative or someone has died and they have to go back to the house. They have to go back to the house where so many secrets were kept, where they blocked out so much, but you have to go back and confront it. It's the same trope as so-and-so goes back to their old town and has to reopen old wounds. It's done in thrillers a lot. It's done in horror books where you've got to go home and, you know, you've got to face your demons one day. And it is getting quite cliche. There's a fair few books that I've read in the last couple of years where it's had that premise and you're like, okay, well, what are you going to add that's new? But it can work really well. Another big element of a lot of haunted house books is greed. It's greed because the house itself, a house is property. Someone owns that, and it can represent a huge amount of money for someone. It can represent, you know, financial ruin or financial gain. So in those old Gothic traditions and a lot of the classic old ghost stories, you might notice that there is a character, someone who wants the house, sinister figures who are lurking on the sidelines, who are really interested in the house, and it turns out they want to get hold of it. So the classic kind of, oh, the happy sort of brother-in-law who's turning up, oh, my brother and his new wife, oh, the brother's died and let's send the wife mad, so they end up inheriting the house. So in some great books you've got a central figure who is innocent, who believes that a house is haunted and is trying to tell people there's a ghost stalking me, and that's just evidence that that person has gone mad. But you'll have this malicious figure, this sinister figure in the background going, oh, well, they're clearly crazy, there's nothing wrong with the house, best to institutionalize them and I shall take care of the property. Greed itself is an insidious demon. It's a terrible, terrible sin in people's eyes. You know, the greed can drive people mad and can drive them to do terrible things, and often it's about the house. So the house itself becomes haunted even though it isn't. The house is the victim sometimes in this. The house ends up being called a haunted house and being referred to in that way because of someone's nefarious plans. It's a nice twist on it. I always like to see that in books. You'll have the haunted house which is isolated, which again is a theme in the Gothic literature where you're cut off. A house can be a trap as well. It's not necessarily a sanctuary. It's not necessarily a comfortable home. It can be a prison for someone where they can't escape, where because of their financial situation, because of their social situation, because of the isolation, they cannot get away from it. And then you've also got the stories, the slightly mind-bending stories of haunted houses, where the house begins to grow and breathe and twist and turn, and it becomes a nightmare. The house uses its architecture to torment the people inside it. It's not in every haunted house book, but old versus new often plays a big role. Haunted houses more often than not are old, and you might have people coming in wanting to modernise, wanting to strip it out and strip away its past and bring it slap bang into the future or into the modern day. You have people who don't want to let go of the past and don't want to come forward, don't want to move out of that space. The horror of the destruction of the past or our fears for the future. So this is my list of great haunted house books that I would recommend, and I think they all offer something different. We are going from classics to modern to very twisted ones, and some honourable mentions at the end. First of all, if you haven't read this, then you don't know anything about haunted houses. I've mentioned it before in videos, I will keep mentioning it. The pop-up book of the haunted house. It's a masterpiece. I cannot remember what year this came out, but this is an absolute joy. My sister found a copy of this for my nephew when he was little. He still has it on his shelf. Every time I go up to visit him, I look through that book. I might steal it. Let me mention a few classics, including a modern classic, that are seen as the grand dams of haunted house books. I have mentioned it many, many times. It's one of my favourite books, and it is a great haunted house book. It is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I've mentioned this book on a fair few videos, and some people have been messaging saying they're reading it. Yes, the language is very of its time. It can feel inaccessible, but this, I think, is a great novella. The story of a governess going to the big old mansion in the countryside and looking after two creepy kids. And it transpires that the mansion may be being haunted by the spirits of two former servants there. Two servants who were in a relationship and were very, very close to the children. This is a great story of dread, of tension, and it's also an example of, are these ghosts real, or is it all going on inside the governess's head? Her own repression, her own desperation to please. Is she manifesting something in this house? Is it saying far more about her and her own issues, her own strangeness? There are some very strange scenes in this book. Is it saying more about her, or is there an actual haunting going on? This book is a blueprint on which many haunted house novels were based. You cannot talk about haunted house books without talking about the modern classic The Woman in Black by Susan Hill. Again, remains one of the scariest books I've ever read. It has elements of the gothic in it, and it has a big old haunted house. It is a little bit on the edge of this one because Eel Marsh House in this book is 100% haunted, but the land around it is haunted as well, so it's almost bigger than the house. If you don't know it, do go and look it up. The Woman in Black, the story of a lawyer who is recounting a tale of him being sent to settle the estate of Eel Marsh House, this house that is in this sort of vast countryside. It is cut off by a causeway, surrounded by marshes. A malevolent spirit haunts it, the Woman in Black. She is not nice. Terrible things have happened in her past, terrible things have happened on that land, and that entire area is haunted, but the house itself experiences these hauntings. It is such a tense, dread-filled book. It still stands the test of time. It is probably where I would say to people to start. If you want to say classic haunted house book, and you don't want to go way back into some of the older literature, if you want something that is very easy to read and is really going to frighten you, The Woman in Black is it. Do want to nod to Jane Eyre. To Jane Eyre, which is a great gothic novel, but again, so many books were influenced by the terror, the slight haunting that is in the heart of that book. Jane Eyre, I think most people know the plot of Jane Eyre, but it is the origins of the mad woman in the attic story. The things that go bump in the night, the strange sounds, the strange rustlings around. Jane Eyre being left to think, am I imagining things? Is this house haunted? Can I trust the man that I'm falling in love with? And then there's the reveal of what's in the house. And while it doesn't turn out to be supernatural, it's incredibly eerie, incredibly frightening in parts. And so many people have taken that, and you can play with that very nicely in horror, The Mad Woman in the Attic. On to the individual lists. I think one book that nearly everyone would mention about haunted houses is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. One of the great horror books of all time. One of the most challenging in some ways. It feels oddly ahead of its time. I don't know if that's a correct thing to say, I mean, because is anything really ahead of its time when you've got a fantastic writer, when you have such a rare talent as Shirley Jackson? Anything she writes, I think you feel this sort of sense of How did she do this? The gathering of several people at this house that is reported to have been haunted, that no one from the surrounding area will ever go near after dark. You have a doctor who wants to conduct experiments there. You have different people from different walks of life connected to the house and not connected, with their own foibles and their own distress that they're bringing into this house. And over the course of an evening, very frightening things happen. It's all about tension, it's about suggestion, and it's very insidious. That's how I feel about The Haunting of Hill House, and that's how I feel a lot about Shirley Jackson's writing. The reason I like Shirley Jackson is she just has this masterful control of tension in her books. And even though some of her stories, you know, the Hill House itself is slightly mind-bending, it is slightly out there, it's not just straightforward like, oh, there's one ghost. Even though they're quite complex stories in some ways, she just manages to control this tension with just this vice-like grip. I often think, what did Shirley Jackson know that we don't? How did she convey terror and the nastiness of terror so well and just so gently, almost? This is a book that proposes the idea that the house itself is born bad. Can a house be born bad? This is a conversation that takes place in the book. Like some people go, are some children born evil? Are people born evil? Is a house just born evil? Which seems ludicrous, but this house really does feel like it is. Now, there is a sequel to The Haunting of Hill House, not written by Shirley Jackson, she's passed away, but a sequel was brought out recently by another very good horror writer, Elizabeth Hand. I loved Elizabeth Hand's Wilding Hall. Again, that's kind of a haunted house book, but it's got a folk rock band in it, so I class it more as folk horror. Wilding Hall, look it up. I did read A Haunting on the Hill. It was fine. It is obviously takes all the inspiration from The Haunting of Hill House. Just sort of felt like more of the same in a different setting, and it's never going to be as good as the original, but still quite intriguing. It just felt very slow, actually. Yes, I have seen the Mike Flanagan series, The Haunting of Hill House. I really enjoyed the series. I really liked it. It is not based on the book. It takes inspiration from it, much like The Haunting of Bly Manor is nothing like The Turn of the Screw, really. So next we have a retelling of a classic haunted house story. I'm going to include What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which is a retelling, reimagining of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. We're staying on the theme here of houses that are bad to the bone and to the cause and to their stays. Stays? Do houses have stays? Those are corsets. I think they do have stays. I don't know. I was writing about corsets this weekend. Don't ask. The original, the story by Edgar Allan Poe is a great tale of a gothic house and a creepy family and strange things that happen. It is dripping with vibes, that story. The story of the ushers who are sort of wasting away and fading in this house, and this friend of theirs who comes to stay and wonders what actually could be at play here. What has taken over the ushers? What spirit is at work? And what about the house itself? T. Kingfisher, wonderful writer, writes fantastic books with such wry humour and also a great grasp of horror, has taken the story, it's updated it, it's part of their Sworn Soldiers series. The protagonist in this instance is Alex, is a sworn soldier, Alex, who is non-binary, comes to see the ushers to the house. This book plays with the idea of what is wrong with the house, what is wrong with the land around it, what is wrong with the ushers, and it brings in a fungal element to it. If you like your books with fungus creeping through things and people and animals, this is a great version of that story. It is a really nice update of The Fall of the House of Usher. It is so gothic and it's atmospheric. It's got great characters through it as well, larger than life ones. It is a very short book, but it packs a punch and it gives you a great twist on the famous House of Usher, one of the most famous haunted houses, and has a lot of fun with the story and gives it fresh blood. The next book I'm going to suggest is The September House. I read this book last year. It's been one of my favourite haunted house books I've ever read, and I think this is such a fresh, brilliant take on the haunted house trope. So this takes the classic idea of the haunted house and flips it on its head a bit, Whereas normally in a haunted house, you have people who move in and find that there are ghosts there, and they're doing everything they can to get rid of the ghosts and to get out and to run away and save themselves. In this instance, we have our protagonist, Margaret. It's told from her perspective, who is a middle-aged woman who has been living in this house with her husband, Hal, for many years. And as soon as they moved in, they found out it was haunted. It is haunted by a series of spirits, some very nice and very helpful, and some absolutely petrifying. They exist in this house. They have their patterns. They have the things that they do, and they move around and things appear. It all crescendos every year at September. Every September, the hauntings reach their peak, and then they sort of fade off, and then they build up again for the next year. We understand that Margaret and Hal, when they moved in, knew about the hauntings. They found out about it immediately, but Margaret wouldn't leave. Margaret was determined to stay. Now, this isn't an instance of the dad in the horror film who won't move out of the house when clearly terrible things are going. Stay with me here. The book opens with Margaret having lived in the house for many years, having worked out how to live with it and feeling okay about what's happening. But her husband, Hal, has left. Margaret feels okay, but then her daughter, Catherine, gets in touch. And Margaret has to explain to her, oh, your dad's gone, and I don't know where he's gone. And Catherine, her daughter, was like, well, this is terrible. I'm going to come down and stay with you, and we're going to find Dad. And Margaret going, oh, God, okay. I love this book, that's why I'm talking about it so passionately. Margaret is confronted with the problem that her daughter is about to come into their house where all these hauntings are happening, and it's nearly September. How does she protect her daughter from the hauntings, from the ghosts, from the spirits that exist in this house and will make themselves known, have made themselves known to Margaret and Hal over the years, while also trying to wrestle with, my husband's gone, where is he? They don't know where he is. She's trying to maintain control over this house. The book is funny and interesting and frightening as you go through the story. As you meet the different ghosts, you've got a housekeeper ghost who ended up with an axe through her head that Margaret can see the wound, but she makes tea. She makes tea for Margaret and she helps out. With Catherine coming into the house, you have an external force coming in who's questioning her mother, and then you start to think, are these hauntings real? I mean, if Margaret has kept everyone out of the house, it's just been her and Hal for all these years, is it real? This story doesn't just deal with the idea, are hauntings in our head, are they things we manifest? It's also a story, without giving too much away, about broken familiar relationships, about how we live with terrible things in this book. This book, halfway through, punched me in the stomach, the equivalent of that. I was reading it and I realised something we as the reader realise midway through the book as Margaret is explaining what has happened, and I had to put the book down and catch my breath because I had never read a book that had dealt with that particular subject so well and had made such a wonderful allegory out of a haunted house. I can't say too much about it because I don't want to give away the plot. It is probably worth a longer video where I can give a spoiler if people are interested. I thought it was handled so well and delivered so well, builds with so many different threads that you're wondering, how is this going to end? What has really happened here? Keeps you hooked and builds to a brilliant climax. I adored the September house. I thought a fresh, truly frightening and at points truly gut-wrenching take on a haunted house that still manages to be funny. This is outstanding. This is your friendly reminder that if you haven't already, now would be a good time to hit subscribe so I can keep bringing you more videos just like this, or advice about how to capture a pixie on the full moon. Let's have a little sunshine in our lives, because often we think of haunted houses as dark, as dour, as shadows moving and on the moors in that gothic kind of setting. No, let's go somewhere really sunny. Let's go to Italy. And let's go to another book that I read last year and absolutely loved. It's Diavola. Diavola. This is a story of Anna, who is going on the regular big family holiday. Her family, who are completely dysfunctional, get together and they go on a huge, big, lavish holiday to different locations. She's turning up in Italy because they have rented a beautiful villa, a historic villa in this gorgeous landscape. She's going to be there with her parents, with her brother, with her brother's partner, this whole cacophony of people, her sister and their kids who are yelling and moving around. But they have rented a villa that has a tower that is blocked off, and that villa is haunted. A haunted house on holiday. It's a great premise, but it's executed so well because of this wonderfully lavish setting, this beautiful setting of it being in Italy. Yeah, you've got little White Lotus vibes in there. It's not a hotel, but it's very opulent and really nice. These ridiculous family members, them snipping at each other, this complete dysfunction, so all of that family drama. But this ghost, this presence that's in the house, and it is seen by Anna. She sees it, and people start acting in a strange way. Things around them start being very, very strange. It is really, really frightening in parts, as well as being lavish, as well as being indulgent. I loved this book. And again, it was a great twist of, yeah, what if you did go and rent a holiday house that is really beautiful and really sunny and it was haunted? You know, you rent a cottage on the moors in the mist and the rain, there may be a ghost there, you probably wouldn't be surprised. But sun-soaked Italy with a pool and a ghost in the tower, didn't see that coming. That is definitely a summer read. Yeah, the sun has gone in my office. I need more lights in my office because the sun is apparently dictating how shadowy this is all getting. If I remember this correctly, there was a very brief moment of animal death in Diavola. I can't remember it, so I don't remember it being traumatic. Excuse me for that. But just a warning there. Staying with a location you might not have considered for a haunted house, let's talk about The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is a story that is set during the Mexican War of Independence, and it is a haunted hacienda. This is a great gothic ghost story that is very frightening and very beautiful in a great location. If you're trying to read more authors from different countries, look up Isabel Cañas's work. We have our protagonist Beatrice. Beatrice has been married off for convenience, not for love. She has married this man and she will get to run her own hacienda. And in the tradition of the Gothic classics, she arrives at the hacienda, her new husband has to disappear, is never around. His sister is there, and she sort of floats around watching the new wife saying strange things, seeming really lovely. You suspect, oh, you're going to be trouble. No sooner has the new bride settled into the hacienda than the hauntings start. Oh, it seems that the first mistress of the house does not want to leave, and may have met her end not entirely pleasantly. A thing that many people will appreciate about the hacienda is that it has a sexy priest. You have a good, honest, hot priest who comes to Beatrice's aid. He is a man of God, but he also understands the ways of the dark arts. It's whispered he is a witch, and he may be able to offer protection and help to cleanse the property of this malevolent spirit. But we have to find out, through the book, what has caused the haunting. This is gothic, this is beautiful, it's indulgent, and it's incredibly enjoyable, and has very scary moments in it. The Hacienda is a great historical horror with elements of romance in there, if you're after that. Now back to more traditional settings of haunted houses. A book that I have mentioned many times in the various videos that I've done on TikTok and have started to do over here is one of the scariest. I think an original, very original scary book that is set in the past is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. We have a young woman who has been married off, and as soon as she's married off, she's made a widow. Her husband drops dead. But she has inherited the bridge, his sprawling estate. Fine house, very fine house that lots of the locals won't go near. It's the setup that you would expect. She comes to this state, she finds servants who are a bit skittish, a relative of the husband's side who is watching her, but she discovers a journal of a woman written back in the 17th century that is revealing some of the horrors that have taken place at the bridge. But the key thing about this property is the presence of the Silent Companions. These are life-sized models, 2D wooden models, where the inhabitants of a noble house would be painted on them. So you'd have these figurines, essentially, these huge painted figurines of each member of the household just in the house. And those are the things that are haunted. They move, and they creep after people. We learn awful stories of the previous inhabitants of the house, of a young child who was there, this idea of malevolence, whether it is born, whether it is made. It is a very angry story of very vengeful spirits of bitterness. It is a story that is written of its time, even though it's a modern book. It does use language that was quite derogatory from the past. A few people I noticed in the years that since I've read it, looking at people's reviews, and they don't really like the language in there, and that's a fair comment. I think it is using the language of the time, making the point that these people, who were using that were not being pleasant at all. It is also referring to how people with disabilities were treated in the past, how they were made to be monsters or certainly seen to be less than human, and what that can do to a person. There is a little bit of farm animal harm in this book as well. It is hard-hitting, it is lavish in its descriptions, it is brutal, and it is truly frightening. And those silent companions, I had never seen anything like that in a book. I had never read anything like it. I thought that was a masterstroke for me. It worked. The silent companions, do check the trigger warnings if you're about to go into this book. Another more recent book that feels like a classic is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. In The Little Stranger, the house is Hundreds Hall, and this is a story where the house is crumbling, it is an estate, and the family in it are sort of trapped in the past. It's set in the 1940s, but the world is moving on post-war, and it is about old sort of coming into the new and the discomfort that the family feel in it. You have the mother, you have her adult daughter and adult son, the son who has experienced terrible, terrible trauma in the war, the daughter who is managing and trying to manage the estate, and into this household comes this local doctor, Dr. Faraday, who is fascinated by the family, but he ends up in the house because a servant girl, complains of being sick, and when the doctor arrives, he's like, "You're not sick." But she's saying, "Please, I don't want to be in this house because it's haunted." She's frightened of what is in this house. This is a house and family that have experienced great loss in the past, and there does seem to be something sinister at work in the house. But it's really more a story of the family, of how they are falling apart and holding themselves together. But there are these hauntings that take place, and they are really quite unsettling. It's a very unsettling book. I will say as well, there has to be a warning. There is a pet death in this book, and it is very sad. It is part of the heartbreak in this book, and I'm not one who enjoys pet death in a book. I have said that many times. I don't like unnecessary suffering for animals. It is hard-hitting. I think it works in this book, if anything can work. It's a really weird way of saying it. It is important to the story, and it's important to the tragedy of it. If you want to look up trigger warnings, or you'd like information from me about what actually happens, I'm happy to do that in the comments with spoilers or stuff, because I understand it's such a big trigger for people. But this is still a wonderful book, and it is a great ghost story, and the way that the ghosts sort of manifest the hauntings all the way through it, it's so masterfully done by Sarah Waters. Dr. Faraday as well, this protagonist who is seeing things, he's not a reliable narrator. He's not bad, he's not evil, but his sort of perspective about what this family should do, I like the way he's written, because it's a very sort of, wanting to be a modern-ish man coming in and sort of being disparaging of the family while trying to help them. And it's a nice way of having that narrator that you don't really like at the end of it, and you're feeling very wrought about everything that happens to this family, and it's a great ghost story. A more recent one again, it is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I think I've read all the Grady Hendrix books. I am a fan of his. I think he does really good work. I think this is one of his best books. I love the way it is structured. I love the way it is written. This is a haunted house story, as you can tell by the title, where you have a brother and sister, Louise and Mark, who have found out that their parents have died and their house is left. They both have to come and sort it out. You have Louise's perspective from the start of coming to this household, they have to clear it out. So a common trope of, okay, clear out the household, all of their stuff, revisiting the home and going through all their things. Mark, when he turns up, you hate him when you first visit. He is a layabout, he is rude, he is nasty, and he just wants the house sold. So we have this element of greed playing into it, of like, right, fine, we've got to sell the house. He just wants the money. And Louise really struggling with the emotions at the start of the book. That's the direction I thought the book was just going to carry on with through it. Early on, though, they try to sell the house. They notice strange things are happening. The estate agent turns up and goes, "No, this house is haunted." which I loved in the book. It's very blunt. It's very blunt from the start, going, no, you got a haunted house, so you're going to have to deal with that because ain't nobody going to buy it. It's very clearly haunted. The house is filled with their mother's side project, which is dolls and puppets. So if you're freaked out by those, oh, buckle in. Little puppets, little things that are there. One in particular that isn't happy. Having a haunted house that is filled with dolls and puppets, I loved the setup of that, because reading through the passages, even early on, as Louise is making her way through the house and you get these descriptions of the puppets, I was waiting for them to move. I was sort of reading it like I was watching it on TV, like I was watching it on screen and watching for them to move, as if that would suddenly jump out of the page. I love that. It just created wonderful tension from the start. I thought the book was just going to carry on this tract of Mark being horrible and Louise trying to like save the day. And it suddenly shifted. You get a different perspective partway through from Mark. And the story suddenly turns. And the story developed and it grew in directions I was not expecting. And it does turn into a powerful story about the family, about loss, about failures, about successes, about what we do for each other, how we carry ourselves, you know, all of those sorts of family dramas, but really nicely wrapped up. I was really surprised at the direction the book was going in, the way that it turned, and it ended up being this wonderful story that was really affecting and very frightening, though, when the puppet kicks off. There was a lot going on in this book, and I thought it was brilliantly laid out and wonderfully structured. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I was terrified by it, and I was really warmed by the ending, by everything that happened. The last book I'm going to recommend is a twist, and I'm going to throw it in for anyone who is more of a sci-fi fan. Now, don't leave, because I'm not a massive sci-fi fan, and that's no disrespect to anyone watching this who is a big sci-fi fan. This is a twist, I think, on a haunted house that I wasn't expecting. It's William by Mason Coley. Now, this author very sadly passed away at the beginning of this year, very young. I remember I just finished reading this book and then read that they had passed, and that's the only reason I mention it. It was terribly sad. But it's a very short book about a man, Henry, who lives in this state-of-the-art house, and he's building a robot, automaton, android, whatever you want to call it, up in his attic. Very cutting edge, ahead of its time, elements of AI in there. It's building this. His wife, Lily, is pregnant. Henry, it's inferred that he is agoraphobic. He doesn't go outside, he doesn't like meeting people, but Lily's inviting people over for lunch. And he's got to behave, and he's got to come downstairs, and he's got to just be sociable. It's a very short book. The horror of this story, you think, is this is technology, that this is the robot that's upstairs, William. What's going to happen there? Oh, okay, is technology going to act against us? And yes, there is an element of that. But it's an interesting twist on a haunting. It is a haunted house story. It's very original. It's very different, and unfortunately I can't say much more without giving away the plot of this book. For someone who's not a massive fan of horror stories that rely heavily on technology, this works 100%. It's very tense, it's very frightening at parts, and it is, as I said, a really interesting twist on an idea of a haunting and a haunted house. William, a very short read, you'll get through it very quickly. Do check it out. That is my current rundown of the best haunted house books that I've read. Some honourable mentions, though. Now, when I mentioned Horror on the Beach, maybe a few people were shouting out, and I still get this book recommended. I have read it. It's The Elementals by Michael McDowell. This is a Southern Gothic, and it is widely praised as a unique setting for a haunted house. You have a haunted house on a beach. This is told from the perspective of 13-year-old India. So you have a family going out to their beach house on the Alabama Gulf, and there are 3 Victorian beach houses in this area, alone, cut off. One of them is sinking into the sand. One of them they don't go into. They do not go near, because something sinister is in that house. The other 2 beach houses, oh yeah, have at it. They love it. They will stay there, and everyone will spread out. But that house is being reclaimed by the sand. It's such a creepy image of this family coming up in this beautiful beach, sun-soaked area, and a Victorian beach house just being taken by the sand. There are great moments of horror. It has an incredible climax. There are some really chilling scenes in it. It's an interesting dynamic of the 13-year-old daughter in this story and her father and the family. Unfortunately, in this book, there are repeated references to one character who is black, and all the way through the book, it's referred to the fact that they're black. I don't see why this person's colour was brought up again and again and again. And people can say it's written of its time. Other books did not manage to do that. How can I mention haunted house books without mentioning The Shining by Stephen King? Technically, that's a haunted hotel. But of course, it is one of the great haunted venues. That's my honourable mention, because I have not read a lot of Stephen King. I have not read all of The Shining. I have not read all of it all the way through. This is not because I am eschewing Stephen King. There are so many other horror books in the world, and there are so many people dedicated to covering Stephen King's books and doing it brilliantly. If you're interested in Stephen King's work, please do look up those creators who have dedicated their time to reading his books in depth and giving full in-depth analysis. You will be in good hands with them. If you're a fan of The Shining, if you've read it, please weigh in the comments. Have at it. Tell us why it works as a haunted house book. It is up there. It's often listed as one of the greats. Two other books that I haven't read that I'm interested in. There's Hell House by Richard Mason, who also wrote I Am Legend. I've read I Am Legend. I've not read Hell House yet. And it's often recommended to me. It comes up in the lists of great horror books and certainly haunted house books. The premise of it looks terrifying. So, has anyone read it? Would you recommend it? What are the triggers? Do any of us need to know about it? Or does it stand the test of time? It was written a while ago. Is it still as scary as it was today? I know what you're all going to say. No, I haven't read House of Leaves yet. It's over there. It's over there. It feels like every month I get a flurry of comments going, definitely read House of Leaves. And then I'm sort of committed going, you know what, I am going to. And then I get another flurry of comments going, don't. House of Leaves, so divisive, but so famous for its unique take on a haunted house novel. It is written in a bizarre style. It is written in a completely strange format in some cases. It is credited as a masterpiece in terms of its originality and its scares. Some people saying it is the scariest book that they've ever read. I have had plenty of people messaging me going, nope, didn't enjoy it. And people who have said they loved it. So The House of Leaves is sitting over there. I have not read it, but it is one of the big ones. You might want to check it out if you have read House of Leaves. Again, weigh in. Is it worth it? And to end with, two honourable mentions of books that are definitely on my list. I have got A House with Good Bones, again by T. Kingfisher. Love T. Kingfisher. That is on my Kindle at the moment. I will be reading that very soon. Credited as a great southern gothic haunted house story. I'm also interested in picking up Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw. I have read The Salt Grows Heavy by this author. Really, really enjoyed it. And Nothing But Blackened Teeth often comes up on lists as a very good modern twist on a haunted house story. Has anyone read it? Would you recommend it? There is a rattle through some of the haunted house books that I have read. What tropes we look for in haunted house books, books that are on my TBR, books that you should check out. Those are some of my favourites and ones that I've enjoyed the most, and there are even more that I couldn't even fit into this video. Could also do a video on haunted house films. I have seen a lot of those. Weigh in on the comments by all means if you've got a favourite haunted house book that you go back to again and again, one that you think is a great example of the genre, or one that you think is a unique twist on it. I'd love to get more recommendations. Please do subscribe to my channel and feel free to leave a comment suggesting different sorts of content or different types of books you'd like me to cover in the future. Stay spooky, bye-bye.